Howdy, my name is Nonat, and tell me GMs, has this ever happened to you?
The door to the left is locked, but you're pretty sure you don't need to go that way anyway. I want to pick the lock. Okay, go for it. I get an 18, does that work?
So yeah, this has happened to pretty much every DM to ever run a tabletop RPG game in the history of time, and if you say it has never happened to you, you're lying. Now in a game like D&D 5e, this problem is pretty easy to fix. Most DCs will land in the range of 10 to 20, maybe over 20 if it's a little bit more difficult. In a system like Pathfinder 2e, this problem is a lot harder. Due to the game's proficiency system, your DCs could land anywhere from 15 to 35 or maybe even higher. So how do you know what to set for a random DC when your player attempts something? My first piece of advice is not to let the internet get you flustered. This is actually what happened to me. All over the internet, people complain about setting DCs due to the overcomplicated proficiency system. I can promise that once you finish watching this video, you'll agree that's not really the case and is a gross over-exaggeration. All you have to do to make a DC in Pathfinder 2e is some simple second-grade math. So how do you know what to set the locked door's thievery DC to pick the lock? Well, if you want the incredibly easy answer, you can use the simple DC table from the core rulebook. This is really easy and super simple to use, but will almost always wind up with the DC either being incredibly difficult or incredibly easy for your players. A DC 20 expert skill check for level 5 and up characters will usually be pretty easy, but if they're only level 2, rolling a 20 or higher is incredibly difficult. I'd say only use these DCs if it's for a roll that doesn't really matter and you just want to get out of the way. Now, a really helpful table is the DC by level table on page 504 of the core rulebook. If you ever are just fishing for a random DC for a task, you can check out this table and just give it a level and get a DC for it. But obviously, you don't want to go digging through a book to find a table to give a random DC to something. You want to keep the game moving. So, here's what I do. Determine the level of the task, add 15, and then add an extra +2 per 5 levels. A level 3 locked door, DC 18. A level 15 locked door, DC 36. This formula will always give you a decently challenging DC. If we look at our level 15 locked door example with a DC of 36, let's say we are a level 15 rogue with a +5 to dexterity and legendary in thievery. That would make our total bonus to our thievery check +28, giving this about a 60% success chance to pick this lock, which in my opinion is perfect. If someone is so totally focused on lock picking, like they've gotten legendary in it, then about 60% success to accomplish something of equal level is great to me. I think that's perfect. You have the advantage. Now, if you think that DC is too hard or too easy, don't be afraid to alter it a little bit. Consider adding or subtracting 2. Just be careful not to change it too much. Plus or minus 2 goes a really long way in Pathfinder 2e. So, to reiterate, the formula is level of the task, +15, +2 per 5 levels of the task. And remember, not every task has to be horribly challenging. Try not to base every DC solely on your player's levels. If your level 12 rogue tries to pick a level 1 tavern door, the DC should still only be 16. This really allows players to feel powerful and feel like they've truly progressed. If they pick a tavern door lock at level 2, and then fail to pick a similar tavern door lock at level 12, they won't feel like they've improved at all. So that's sort of my final tip, is base your DCs on the target, not the player attempting them. Oh, and would you look at that? I passed my diplomacy check against your will DC. That means you have to like the video. Oh, and if I'm not mistaken, oh, that's a critical success. That means you have to subscribe, too. Man, I'm glad I took the sellout archetype. It's really paying off. Thanks for watching, y'all. I hope I managed to make setting DCs at least a little simpler for you. If you just can't handle the math of the formula live on the fly, I'd consider writing down a decent margin of levels from the DC per level table. These will get you close enough to the formula and you can still alter them up or down as you see fit. I've personally always had success with the formula, but I'm also able to do simple math really fast in my head, and I know not everybody can do that. If your GM's been struggling with coming up with DCs on the fly, consider sending them this video. I really want to help simplify the system and help people understand how it works. Pathfinder 2e, while definitely not simple, is not nearly as complex as people think it is. I want to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. Every time I say this, I just can't say it enough. You help me do what I do. Thank you. Also, I'm excited to say that we're about to start our second patron campaign. For those of you who aren't aware, the Tier 4 patrons over on Patreon get to play in a twice-a-month campaign with me. It's a ton of fun. We already had the first session of the first one, and we had so many people sign on last time that the second one is going to be starting in the next week or two. I think there's only 2 or 3 more slots open in the Tier 4 pledge, so if you want to get in on these campaigns, now's the time. Also, I hope you enjoyed the new camera. Maybe I'll do this more, maybe I won't. I'm messing around with using my phone as a camera versus my webcam, because I think this is way higher quality, so we'll see. We'll have to let me know how I did. You'll have to let me know. Outros suck, man. Let me know in the comments what you think of this camera setup versus the other one. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, no nat ones.